It's time to review the markets, and let's do so with Eric Osterhaus, Paragon Ag Advisors in Silver Lake, Kansas. All right, let's first start off with that export sales number. Big number for pork. And it just seemed like that hog market has lifted the cattle market to a degree. Would you agree?
I really would. When you see a competing meat, a competing market like pork, and you see the moves that we've seen over there over the last month and a half, it attracts attention. And, you know, I think the funds have been long the cattle market for a little bit anyway. So I think this just adds a little extra fuel to the fire. Again, looking at that hog market here, we've all been waiting around for some of those export sales to show the net effect of the African swine fever over there, and I think maybe we're starting to see the first hints of that.
Do you think that once we get an agreement with China that we'll see enthusiasm like this spread through the rest of the market, cattle market, soybean market, corn market to a degree?
I think so. The key to that is how long does it last? I call it the relief rally. I feel like at some point we will have a bit of a relief rally when that deal is done in all the markets. And, you know, to some degree it should bounce higher after having that agreement, so people feel a little more confident about what our supply and demand situation is going to be moving forward. And so that's the big hope. And again, as we've talked before, it really can't happen too soon to have that agreement done.
Yep, I agree. Earlier in the week, we had the World Supply and Demand Estimate also released, and it really kind of put a little bit of a bearish tone out here on the market, on the grain market.
Yes, I mean, we followed up that quarterly stocks report, which gave us, of course, a really large number, especially there for corn. And then we followed up a couple weeks later with a pretty bearish monthly supply and demand numbers. So, you know, the only silver lining to that, if I can say that there is one, is that, as using corn as an example, it didn't make a new low. You certainly could have seen with all the numbers, whether it's beans or wheat, and wheat being another one of those that suffered quite a bit. It had every excuse in the world to go ahead and make a new low at this time, especially for the time of the year and the lack of a deal being done with China and all those things, but it didn't. So again, at least it looks like it wants to hold those bottom end of the ranges for now, and gives us a chance for a bounce if we have weather and some of these other things come into play.
Yeah, and I was just getting ready to say that. Don't you think a lot of that has to do with the weather being able to hold these levels? Because we're still record short, almost 250,000 contracts record short.
Yes, it's a little bit breathtaking, honestly, to see how short they want to be the grains at this point, in particular with all the weather anxieties and problems that we've had, because they have been fairly significant. And looking out into the longer range forecasts there, I don't see a very warm and dry pattern developing just yet, not according to the weather folks that I'm watching. So I think it's just maybe a bit of a time of the year. A lot of this is always timing, and I think we just need to get further down the calendar before the folks really start paying attention to that. But if that weather pattern does come to be true, let's say 3 or 4 weeks from now, I think you start seeing that weather traded a lot more, and maybe some of those short positions getting a little nervous.
Going into next week then, with the holiday, you know, Good Friday, the markets will be closed. Do you think we'll just kind of chop sideways here?
It really feels that way, unless there's big news from China or some other news that we're really not talking about right now. It's more likely just to see more of a consolidation, sort of a pattern developing, at least for the next week.
All right. Any other thoughts here, final thoughts about any of these markets that you think bears watching?
Well, I think, you know, you always have to pay attention to what side the funds are. I think that is an important thing, and we know that they're very short the grains. We know that they're long the livestock, particularly the meats at this point. So you always have to have a little bit of caution there, and especially when, as a producer, you're seeing prices out there that you can pencil in profit. And if you're in a place where you're penciling in profit and the funds are really long, sometimes discretion's the better part of valor. Maybe getting some things done just to get a floor underneath you wouldn't be a bad idea.
All right. What's the website?
Website, www.myagadvisor.com.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric. Eric Osterhaus here with us. Be sure and stay tuned. We've got more coming up in just a moment.